Hello lovely fellow humans, welcome to another Colganology, and this one is another musical instrument video. Well, I say musical, I think the last time I did one of these I called it a screaming engine. Well, this one's not so much a screamer and more of a rumbler or a grumbler. So, you've met the horn of Geddon. And you've met the didgeridoo. And then there was the xylophone. No, not really. It sounds like this. And then there was the hornix. Well, this new instrument is the biggest, most complicated, and the silliest yet. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the... It's that time again, time for another silly instrument. Now, do you remember those CPAP pipes I had? Those pipes from the sleep apnea machine? Well, it's time to use them. But first, I've got to make a frame for them to fit onto. Now, I've got this piece of electrical conduit. It's quite long. So what I've done is I've measured it carefully to find the halfway point, which I've marked here. And then I'm going to fold it in half. And what I should then have is an A-frame where both arms are the same length. Oh, bugger. So, having folded the tube in half, I've now added a kind of ladder structure using some dowel and cable ties. This is going to be the structure that will actually fit onto my shoulders. So I now have a structure to wind my CPAP pipes around. That was the idea. And I've got the two diaphragms at the end here. And what I've done is I've made a piece of tubing to join them all together. So let's attach that and see how it sounds. Oh, I'm liking this. I've been thinking about how that frame's going to sit on my shoulders. Now, this is a container of hot chocolate, instant hot chocolate by a well-known manufacturer, and the shape of it struck me. Those sort of shoulders on it look as if they'd fit very comfortably on a human shoulder. So I thought, hang on, I'm sure I saved a couple of these in my plastic rubbish box. And sure enough, you see, the angle on them is really comfortable, really comfortable. So now all I've got to do is mount these two on the bottom of my frame. Well, that's the skeleton done. Now we're going to put some flesh on the body. I've been trying to think what this thing sounds like. It reminds me a little bit of the cimbasso, which is a not very well-known Italian alternative to the tuba, which sounds like this. But it also reminds me of the kind of infrasound noises that large animals like elephants make. And that kind of inspired the design of the Bellowhead. Now, I've called this project a Bellowhead, partly as a tribute to one of my favourite folk bands. When the Alabama's keel was laid. But also because the idea is to make that horrendous sound come out of the mouth of some kind of animal. So the idea is I'll have the frame fitted onto my head like this, but around the outside will be some sort of monster head. So it'll look as if I've got a very long neck, a bit like, you know, a long-necked dinosaur, and the noise will be emitting from the mouth. Easier said than done, but we can do it. So I've got some of this foam core board. It's like card with a piece of foam in between, left over from an old project. I'm going to cut that into strips, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use those strips to make a sort of frame for the skin to go on the outside of my Bellowhead. Progress report. As you can see, I've now got a frame, a structure that's giving the whole thing some rigidity now. Now what I have to do is clad the outside. So I've got the entire cardboard frame done now, right up to the top, although that'll be left blank because the head's got to go over that. I'm now going to cover it in this packing tape. Now I bought this stuff to be ethical because it's plastic free, but it's also sticky free. It's not very good as packing tape, so I'm going to use it to create a skin around the outside of this thing. And there we go. Of course, space for me to see out of. I then decided in my infinite wisdom that it would be a good idea to cover the entire body in scales. So I started cutting some out and gluing them on with a hot glue gun. And I don't think I quite realised the enormity of the task. I mean, just that first ring going around the top here. I mean, that was 18 scales. And the next ring down was probably 18 as well. And the third ring, they'll start getting smaller, of course, as we go down the body, until it gets quite narrow at the top. But nevertheless, there's a lot of cardboard cutting out in my future and an awful lot of glue sticks. Hey ho, I do these things to myself. The end result will be worth it, I hope. So I'm about halfway through putting the scales in this thing, as you can see it in the background there, and I'm just starting to think about the head now. So I'm getting some cardboard and I'm starting to stick it into certain shapes. I think that's kind of the start of a head shape there, maybe. Yeah, I'll keep playing with some cardboard and see what happens. Well, I think the head shape's starting to appear. There's the mouth there, you see, and where the pipes will come out. Looking at the shape of the monster's head, I'm struck by the fact it looks a little bit Disney Pete's Dragon. I wanted a slightly different shape. And I suddenly remembered a book from when I was younger, or basically when my kids were younger. So, yeah, it was this book called Seraphim. It's a French book, or Séraphin. It's a French book. Written originally and illustrated by Philippe Fix, or Fils, and this is the English translation version. I remember it's a lovely story about this guy who builds a place that's higher and higher and higher until he gets up into the clouds. But I remember there's one point where he decides to build a robot, and I was always struck by how good that shape is of the robot's head. I think we might try and replicate that in cardboard. So there we go. Bottom jaw made and added, top jaw, neck, body. Oh my god, this thing is about 5 feet tall now, and it's got to fit onto my shoulders. So I'm thinking now about eyes, and I've got these things. These are Christmas baubles. You put whatever you like inside and you clamp them together, and boom, you make your own bespoke Christmas decorations. Did it a few years ago as a family, and I've got a little box of these left. So I thought, well, what about placing a big googly eye in the bottom of this and then painting behind white, so then we get some actual movement in the eye. I thought that'd be quite good fun. So, white primer, let's do it. That'll do. Oh my giddy aunt, if I never ever see another scale shaped piece of cardboard in my life, I will be a very, very happy chappy. That has been a mammoth, an absolutely mammoth task covering this thing in scales, and I've got through a whole box of glue sticks. We've now started the process of covering the head in scales as well, and these are much smaller scales, and oh my god, will this job never end? I now find myself thinking about teeth. No, not your teeth. You've got the bite power of a sock puppet. Now I'm thinking more of my dragon's teeth, and I've got, you know, there's always polystyrene packaging kicking around, you know, even if I haven't got any, people put it out for the bins. And I thought this would be good for teeth, because again, I don't want to spend any money. Let's make this out of junk if we can. So let's start off by actually just making a few. Oh, that's very satisfying. That's very, very satisfying. So if I wanted to make teeth now, let's go and we have a tooth. Well, good enough for my purposes anyway. Hello chums. A few words of advice if you're using this beastly stuff, expanded polystyrene. Now the first thing to say about it is a plastic, and of course we've got to be very careful with plastics these days about putting them into the environment. So if you're going to cut it with a hot wire rather than a knife, because a knife will release lots of little bubbles and bits and pieces that will just go off into the environment. It's a nightmare. But if you're going to cut it with a hot wire, bear in mind the fumes are toxic. This is quite problematic, this stuff. Secondly, it's very prone to melting if you put any kind of heat onto it. So hot glue is difficult. The way you get around that is basically you cover the block with masking tape, and then you can hot glue it if you're using it in construction. Also bear in mind that this stuff is prone to melting when in the presence of certain solvents. This is expanded polystyrene, which makes it very soft and flexible and useful as packing material. When it's compressed polystyrene plastic, it's the same stuff that they make model kits out of, like your Airfix aircraft, your tanks, your Millennium Falcons, whatever it happens to be. And as you know, you use a solvent glue to stick together your plastic model kits. Well, that same solvent is also in most aerosol spray paints. So if you spray aerosol paint with this, it'll just melt it. So you've either got to cover it first. Usually something like a coating of PVA wood glue is a form of plastic. It's polyvinyl acrylate, and that will actually cover this and create a barrier so that the spray paint will sit on top. Doesn't always work very well, and you sometimes need 2 or 3 coats. Or you can just take the simple option, which is wait until I've painted old dragon head over here and then pop the teeth in afterwards. There you go. Polystyrene 101. I have now covered the body with over 800 scales so far, and we're getting there. We are getting there. The next thing is going to be to do something about the back of the head, because I want some bits to come off the back, like horns or long feathers or something like that. I've got an idea. So today I'm going to concentrate on making these sort of feathery things coming off the back of the head. So what I've done is I've built a kind of extension to go onto the back of the head here. This is it here, see? And this will go on the back of the head up here, somewhere like that. And then attached to that will be lots of long feathers or streamers. And for that, I'm going to use these packing strips, which I've saved from all the boxes that you can see stacked up in the doorway there. Right, let's start cutting them. Decisions. Do I want the ends to be like this, sort of scalpel edged? Or do I want them more sort of spear edged like this? I think on the whole I prefer this one to this one, so I think we'll do that. Oh my goodness, is the politest way to say this, I think. I think it was Leonardo da Vinci who was supposed to have said that art is never finished, it's only ever abandoned. In other words, you know, the artist is a perfectionist and wants to get things absolutely right. But this project, I mean, it's now been about a month. I mean, admittedly, I'm only working in my spare time because I do have a full-time job. It's been about a month. It's involved cutting out over now 1,300 individual cardboard scales and sticking them on, building a structure, cutting up packing tape, and everything else that I've done, just so that I can make a weird noise. Yeah, it probably says something about my own tenacity and something about my own slightly unstable personality that I feel that this is important for some reason. But I'm so far into it now, I've got to finish. So let's get my skates on and let's get this thing finished. So there we go, the cardboard, the plastic, everything is now done. So it's painting day, but first a little bit of prep, because as you can see there are lots of these little sort of cobwebby bits that you get left over from using hot glue. They're everywhere. Best way of getting rid of those? Blowtorch. I have to say, it's a beautiful day for spray painting. Right, let's make a start. Let's get started. And there we go. Some gold with a little bit of red highlights. And just to give you a sense of how big this thing has become, ta-da! So the very last things to do was to cut out all the polystyrene teeth, find a couple of things to put on as nostrils and put the eyes on. And that, my dear friends, is the Bellowhead. What does this thing remind me of? Oh, have you ever seen the film The Giant Claw? Anyway, time for a field trial. I just met two of my neighbours walking their dog, and they saw me walking along with this thing under my arm, and it was like, oh, morning Steve. They're all used to it now. So there you go, that was the Bellowhead. Good fun to make. Took a lot of work, a lot of hours, but you know, all the best things are worth the effort you put into them, aren't they? And I'm probably going to have a little bit of a break now while I think about what the next thing will be, but I've got some ideas. Maybe it's about time I started doing something percussive or something with strings. I do play guitar and I play drums, so we will see. But in the meantime, I'm going to put my feet up, have a lovely cup of tea, a couple of biscuits, and have a doodle in my sketch pad, I think. So until next time, Toodle-pip. If you've enjoyed this video, then please consider subscribing. Or click on some of these links to look at some of the other videos on the channel. Or press the like button. Or leave a comment. It would be lovely to hear from you. Any combination of those four things would be wonderful. Thank you very much.